I am Fred. This is Wayne. And I'll tell you what, we're just going to do a brief introduction for the record. Today is an interesting day. It's February 29th, 2024. So I have a friend who has a birthday today. So I said to him, "You're like 17 years old, right?" He said, "Yeah."
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. Would you please, just for the record, state your name and address?
Robert Michael Stuart, Stuart, 253 East Avenue, Batavia, New York, 14020.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you. Just going to try to make this a little louder. Okay, good. Okay, so Mr. Stewart, thank you for agreeing to do this and thank you for your service. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your uh, your childhood and your time leading up to when you joined the Marines?
Well, I was born just after World War II in 1946, August 15th, in a naval hospital, Quantico, Virginia. My dad was stationed there. He was a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps, flew off two Navy carriers in the Atlantic at that time. So my grandmother came down from Iowa to help my mother with me, and I know where I lived because I went to Quantico and saw the little apartment, so where I was. So
Good. Okay, and where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school in Portland, Oregon. We moved to Portland in it would have been 1940, 48 or 49, and to be with my grandparents. We lived with them briefly in Portland, and my dad's side, we were with my mother's grandparents in Sioux City, Iowa, and then we moved from there. And it was during a blizzard. I'll never forget it. It's one of my earliest memories. My brother and I in the back seat, my dad screaming and trying to see couldn't see out of the window, so we had the door open.
Right.
And it was pretty scary, but we got there.
So you were in
So I went to high school at David Douglas. I grew up in the David Douglas school district, and David Douglas was a Scottish botanist. He discovered the Douglas fir tree and a bunch of other things. He was a little guy, and it was way back when. And so we were named after him, and we were the largest high school in the state of Oregon at that time. We had more than 3,000 students, and I think my brother's class had 4,000. And so I went to school in the elementary schools in the district and then the high school. Okay. And that's in Southeast Portland.
Okay,
I grew up in Southeast Portland.
I have a niece who lives in Southeast Portland.
So that's where I grew
up. So when you were in high school, the war in Vietnam was starting to get pretty hot and heavy. And you chose to join the Marine Corps?
Well, it wasn't so easy as that. I was married. I got married at 19. I was at the University of Oregon in Eugene. I ran for Bowerman in the cross country, and,
wow.
I didn't really plan to go to the service, but I got drafted I got married in June of 1966. Then I got drafted in November of 1966. And then I appealed it before the draft board, but they didn't accept it. And I was a full-time student. I took an exam at Portland State University for, it was like a GRE sort of. And they said that if you pass it, that you don't have to go. So I passed it, but I did. So instead of the Army, because my dad was in the Marines, I went to a recruiter. His name was Bradford. He was an African-American guy, gunnery sergeant, good man. And he told me about the 90-day delay program they had in the Marine Corps at that time. So for a 2-year enlistment. So I took that because the Army didn't. I would have had to have gone right away. And I had to get my affairs in order and all that. So I had 90 days. So I ended up going in June of 67 to boot camp in San Diego. And, you know, I just felt like, you know, that I didn't want to shirk the responsibility if I had to do it. And so that's what I was one of the college guys that was in the Marines.
Okay.
So what was boot camp like?
Boot camp was hell. It was such a shock. It was not what I, you know, I mean, it was amazing. We flew into San Diego and the drill instructors were right there and they were, you know, running around with their swords and everything. And we got our hair shaved, the usual, you know, and all that. And then we just had to learn quick. And I think we did. We had a good platoon, good drill instructor. Well, two of the drill instructors were good guys. 2 of them were nuts. And so it was tough, but I did well. I got through it and all that. And then we went on to Camp Pendleton, and I qualified with a rifle. I'd never used a rifle before because I was a city kid, you know. But I did all right. And then we went to and made a lot of friends and stuff. And you know, there were other guys that had been college guys too. So had 2 years of college, and I was glad that I enlisted because I had a lot of pressure to go to OCS, and I didn't want to do it unless I could be a pilot like my dad was. And I had bad eyesight, so that was out. And
Now, why did you not want to go into OCS?
well, I didn't want to go to OCS because of the war. It was very unpopular in Portland. My parents were adamantly opposed to it, and you know, our Congress people, Senator Hadfield and Wayne Morris and Edith Green, you know, they were so against it and everything, and you know, it was just not a popular thing to do. And so, you know, but I didn't want someone taking my place, especially some poor guy that, you know, they would draft. And I felt like it was my duty to do it, even though I didn't want to do it, didn't agree with it. And I just wanted to go to school. But, you know, I was one of those guys that got picked up. And I wasn't the only one. We had another college guy, a friend of mine from Michigan State, that was in there, but he enlisted and he didn't have that problem. His dad was a colonel in the Air Force and his brother was a fighter pilot. Because he had the poor eyesight, he joined the Marines because he couldn't fly. You know?
So at this point, you and your wife had no children.
No. We just got married. We got married in June of '66, and I got drafted in November '66. So we weren't together much, you know. So one of those things, but none of it seemed to matter because they needed people as a replacement for casualties at that time. 67, it was really heating up.
Right.
66, you know, it was getting there. So that's what we did.
So you entered the Marine Corps in late June of '67, and then you went to boot camp, and it looks like you went to Vietnam at the end of the year in '67.
Yes.
So what did you think prior?
I got there around the middle of December.
Okay, what did you think prior to leaving for Vietnam, what did you think was the situation there?
Well, you want me to say a swear word?
Yeah,
It was
it's
a
okay.
clusterfuck. It was a clusterfuck because I had a lot of buddies of mine that wrote me letters in '66 from there, and they were over there, and really good friends. And so I kind of had a feeling through their letters what was going on. And one was with 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, and anyway, and he's so different than me now. We can't hardly talk because he's a MAGA guy and all that, down in Dallas, Texas, and so. But I had some other friends too that were writing, and so we kept up, and it just didn't seem like it was something we should be doing. And we were losing casualties. We had a lot of casualties in '67, and my battalion in particular, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines had. Where they're known for the hill fights, and if you want to know more about it, you can read this book. This is an excellent book. I guess part of my healing has been collecting a library over the years and reading about it. But this book, can you
If you
see
want to
it?
hold it, can you move it back a little bit? Because it's a little
Oh.
fuzzy, but well,
Yeah,
actually,
no, we can't. It's
no.
blurred out. What's
Oh.
the name of the book, Robert?
The name of the book is The Hill Fights, the First Battle of Khe Sahn. It's written by Edward F. Murphy. Edward F. Murphy, and it's really a good read. And when I sent this to my friend Mike Donahue, who was the finest combat Marine I ever served with, he's from Portland too, and we were rivals in high school in track and field and 800 meters, and he knew my name and knew me. So when I came to the platoon, he'd been there for several months. He was acting platoon sergeant, and he was only a lance corporal, but he saved a lot of lives on that hill and the hill fights. And this is all about 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, our unit, and the whole battalion was involved in that. And that was before they established the Khe Sahn base and all that,
Okay, so why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what happened, when you arrived, where you went?
Okay, get back to me. Yeah, sure.
And what it looked like when you got there.
Well, the day I arrived from Okinawa, we didn't know anybody because we went one by one. So we didn't go with anybody we knew in training. So, no one knew anybody. So we got off the airfield and immediately was hit. It's Da Nang. And we were getting incoming rounds at the plane. And so we were hustled into trenches, and we had to wait there for quite a while. And then we were assigned to our units one by one. So we were divided up to all the different units, and it was bedlam. It was tough. And, you knew you were in a war the second we hit the airfield. And then I met this one buddy of mine. So did you get that, Jim, or did you get my mail I sent you?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that tells some of us.
Yeah. We're looking at that, and we're figuring to use that as sort of
back
through the discussion.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So it was horrible, and then we our battalion, because of what happened in the hill fights, we had 165 killed, and we had over 500 wounded out of less than 1,000 men. And so we were regrouping and adding the new replacement troops, and I was one of them. So we were all assigned to different units. We didn't know each other anyway. And
So Robert, as soon as you got off the plane, you knew you were in a war.
Oh, hell yes, I did. You bet. I did. And also, when I was riding out to the battalion that was regrouping, and this was just before the Tet Offensive, we had a guy on top of the machine gun. He was a sergeant that had been wounded, and black guy, and we were drawing fire just to go to the our area 413 it was, and yeah, so we knew we were in a war. Yeah,
So it
big
says
time.
on here that you spent 11 months in the DMZ and 1 month in the Da Nang area.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so
during the regrouping in the Tet Offensive.
what were the typical operations like?
Well, you were helicoptered in to usually a hot landing zone, which meant that you were drawing fire. And then, if you were lucky enough, you teamed up with other companies. I was with Echo the first time, and we should have never been there, but the intelligence knew that Gonoi Island was a place where the North Vietnamese units and the NLF units were getting ready for the Tet Offensive. So they were all over the place. They looked like ants on these hills, and but they were out of range. So, but unfortunately, my company was ambushed, and one helicopter was blown up, and not ours. We got off of it, caught fire, and then we were stuck, just pinned down. We couldn't get anything going, and so we had to wait, and we waited, and then they called in airstrikes, and napalm came right up in our faces because we were so close to the North Vietnamese and stuff. And so some of us got burnt and by it, and then the rockets and everything, and it didn't seem to slow them down. They during the night, I was on a machine gun with a buddy, and I thought we were going to get overrun because we were just a small group of guys, company, and so, but thankfully we had a captain that was from Australia. I think I sent you that.
Yes.
And we had some Australians with us that were good, and Captain Cowell, he did a good job, and so we took a lot of KIAs, but not so bad as we could have. We could have been totally overrun because we were called a Rena Battalion at that time, and because we were rented out to First Marine Division battalions, and of course they put us in the worst places, because we were from the 3rd Marine Division, and so it was bad. It was terrible. I thought we were going to get overrun, but we didn't. And in the morning, we had a stack of bodies, and we had to put them on the choppers, and then we got to get out of there. It was what we called a clusterfuck. Sorry for the language.
No, so every day when you woke up, was any part of you, did you feel fear every day?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I was, we were tough, and we fought for each other, and as we got to know each other better, and they got to know, we trusted each other, and we did all we could to keep each other alive. That was the only reason. That was the reason why we fought, really, was to do that, and that was from the colonel on down, and it was one of those things that we tried to, and we did a good job. I mean, we were very efficient at what we did. It's just that our hearts weren't into that war, but they were into each other, and so yeah, and we did some bad things, and it wasn't so much in my platoon, but it was there were some bad things that happened. And,
So you were there for a year. Was that the deal essentially, that it was a 12-month
well,
tour?
they said 13 months in the Marine Corps. I got a Christmas cut so I could be home for Christmas.
Okay.
So I should have been going home in January, early January, but I got to go home for Christmas. So I made it just before Christmas.
Okay. Now you also said that it was kind of a rent a group. Is that how it was for the
Well,
whole?
we were the first month was we were Rena Battalion, but then we went back to the 3rd Marine Division again. And see, part of the reason that we were the ones that had to regroup was because before I got there, we were on what was called float phase. That meant that we were a troubleshooter battalion off the USS Tripoli in the South China Sea. So they would go into situations where other battalions were in trouble, and they would reinforce that battalion, and so that's what was happening. So and they took a lot of casualties doing that, but we were called bastards from the sea, not Rena Battalion.
Okay.
That's what I got there.
Gotcha.
So we kept the bastards from the sea, but we added the Rena Battalion. And I was one of the lucky ones to go home.
Yeah, that's true.
And the reason I think that I was lucky to go home was because I became a chaplain's assistant, so I didn't do all the stuff but I did go back to my platoon all the time when the chaplain wasn't there. And but we were with the CP group, the command post group. That's the colonel and all that on battalion operations. So we got a lot more incoming than the companies, but we had more. We didn't lose as many with the the rifles and all that kind of stuff.
Now, how did you get to be a chaplain's assistant, and what was involved with that?
Well, I'll tell you the story. There was a guy in the company office, an African American guy by the name of Stan Shell. He had a degree from Stanford, and I had 2 years at Oregon. But anyway, he thought that I knew him because the first day we were in formation, they asked if any of us could type. And me and this other guy, Rick Maris, said, yeah, we can type. And because they thought we were all just grunts. Well, we were. But so how many words a minute can you type? He said, the officer. And I said, 75. He said, bullshit, go in and take a test. Well, I did. I typed 75.
75.
Then he asked Rick how many words a minute he could type, and he said 55. And so he went, so we both went, he went to S3, I think it was, and I went to headquarters. So I was there for about a week, and then, I got transferred out. But because I was typing the captain's papers, and some of the other guys were jealous that I was doing that because, they wanted to stay there and they didn't want me there. So whatever. But because I was a boot MFer, and Rick, he got wounded in January 30th. He got his elbow shot out, and the little guy they put him in machine guns, and he actually had been a sniper. But everybody that went to sniper school, they weren't getting killed. It was grunts that were getting killed. So they put Rick in a machine gun unit in Golf Company, and it was during Tet, and he tried to protect this little guy that was from Oregon, and I tried to find his parents, but when I got back, but I didn't. but he got killed and Rick got shot. They got in an ambush around the Da Nang area, and so it's the last I saw of him. I mean, I saw him on a casualty report, but
So
there were a
what,
few guys that I knew. Huh?
what was it that you saw when you were with the chaplains? What did the chaplains do?
The chaplains were all different, but they went out with the battalion when we went on sweeps and stuff, and one of them carried a pistol, and he was a Southern Baptist, the first one I had, and he was more interested in protecting me than me protecting him, I think. And I was supposed to be his bodyguard,
Right.
but he was there too long. And the second one was a Roman Catholic priest, and he came when we were up at Khe Sahn, and he was I think in shell shock when he first came. He did a good job and everything, but he just we had a bunch of guys that were napalmed and were coming off choppers. They were dead, and he said, "Oh, a bunch more crispy critters." And I said to myself, "Geez, that's inappropriate," But but anyway, he was just shell shocked, and anyway. But he used to tease the officers when he first came in, and because they smoked weed, and they were good. They were good in the field. But anyway, and one of them, he got in trouble because he wrote his congressman about Shervanack. His name was from Chicago, because our rifles were jamming, the M16s. They weren't reliable, and they jam in a firefight, and mine jammed a couple of times too. And these guys were dead, because they didn't have a weapon. And so he reported it to his senator and all that. And of course, the Marine Corps kicked him out. But we thought the world of him for doing that.
It kicked him out because he reported something to the senator?
Yeah, to a senator. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was replaced immediately.
Wow.
But we had a lot of good officers that were like that. And one of them became the commandant of the Marine Corps, Jim Jones.
Wow.
And he also became the head of, what is it, in Europe? Well, he had a post over there that was the top level military. And then he was advisor to President Obama, I think. Jim Jones, he came from the South, tall, skinny guy. And he was noted for holding off the North Vietnamese up in a battle. It's called Foxtrot Ridge. And they were just above us. And the North Vietnamese really wanted to take over that ridge line so they could have access to Khe Sahn, pummeling it and stuff. And we held them off, and they overran, I think, one of the platoons, but not the other two. And Jones was with Golf Company, so he didn't know anybody there. They didn't know him, but the captain went on R&R, and of Fox Company, and so the colonel moved him over there as the acting captain. So it was kind of interesting. I had a really good friend that was the forward observer with him during the fight. And I was down below in the gun pits with the mortars, firing the mortars up. And we lost one mortar that they blew up, but we had the other two. So anyway, the general, there's a book about him too. It's called, let's see, well, it's a guy, he was famous for Korea. He fought in 3 wars, and his name was Ray Davis. And he was well respected, and he was commanding general of 3rd Marine Division. And Ray Davis flew up on the hill after the firefight, after the night of the battle. And of course, with all our air power and everything else, we killed about 320 of them, and I think they only had 10 or 15 KIAs for Foxtrot Company. So Jim Jones, he took him away in the helicopter, and we never saw him again. Till I saw him later with he was in Iraq and fighting protecting the Shiites and on TV and all that. And anyway,
So you had mentioned a little bit earlier that you didn't think that the war really made a lot of sense.
hell no, I didn't. I did not. No.
And I think you said that you weren't the only one there, that some of your
No,
comrades.
they all, everybody thought that. Nobody thought that the war was worth it and that we should be there. And we just were fighting to save each other. And we fought hard to do that. But we didn't like what we were seeing. We didn't like the South Vietnamese government. We didn't like the Arbans. We didn't trust them because some of them were, inserted that were from the other side. So, it was just one of those things. And it got, during the Tet Offensive, I mean, we fought like hell, but, it was a mess. It was a total mess. I mean, and we didn't respect our generals. I mean, not the Marine Corps generals so much as Westmoreland. We hated that guy. And
Now, why was that?
well, because he wasn't a combat. He was artillery. I think it was his MOS, but he was just throwing parties and doing stuff down in Saigon all the time. And I later found this out when I lived in France from a guy that was on his staff. He was a captain. Told me about this guy. It just, I would never go to any parade he was at or anything around the guy. But I felt like the leadership of the thing was not good. And we didn't have any faith in it. And, so it was horrible.
It
So
almost sounded like when you got off from the moment you got off the plane, that you were on the defense.
I was under fire. Yeah, I was right away. And we didn't have rifles or anything. We were in stateside gear, all that. And then when I got to my battalion, we all had medevac gear. So that meant that, our gear was somebody else was killed that had that gear on. And you were wearing, boots and everything else that somebody else had that was KIA. So, there was blood stains and stuff on my outfit, on everything I had, and my helmet and helmet liner. I had to rewrite stuff on the helmet liner, so I could cover up the other stuff that was written. So that's how it was. So medevac gear wasn't, very helpful, but that's what we had in the Marine Corps.
So I gather you completed your time there late in 1968.
Yes.
So what were your feelings as you were coming to the end of your time there?
My feelings were torn between leaving my friends behind, worried about them, and coming home, because we knew that the war was terribly unpopular here too. And but I had no idea what it would be like coming back here. I mean, I just didn't have a clue. I mean, I didn't really know. And I was seeing that some of my friends, some of these guys were talking about not ever coming back here and going to somewhere else to live and make a life. And they did it. I saw that happen. But I didn't. I came home for my, family and stuff. But got out of my uniform as soon as I got off the plane, and as soon as I got home, and didn't wear it anymore. I bought a Beatles wig because they made me have a pig shave in Okinawa, and they wouldn't let me go home until I got the haircut. So
Now
huh?
you were still in the Marines for a few more months after you got home, right?
Yeah. Then I went back to Camp Pendleton and became a squad leader in a infantry platoon in the 28th Marines. They were known for World War II, and at San Mateo. And then I got tired of that and decided to go to the dentist. I needed some work on my teeth, and I was, I thought when I wasn't going to do anything when I came back, but the sergeants and the others that were higher than I was, and I was a corporal, they thought that they had paid their dues, and so I was going to take their place. Kind of how it went. So I applied for a school cut, 90 days, and I got it. And so I got out a little earlier so I could get back to school, and that was awful experience too. So everything was bad as far as I was concerned, and we were persona non grata in the U.S. I felt like, and we it just I felt like out of place. I got involved in Vietnam Veterans Against the War at the University of Oregon campus and stuff, but I didn't want to hurt my friends that I left over there, so I didn't do any of the demonstrations and that kind of stuff. I just went to the meetings. But then I went to grad school and just kind of hibernated in a library carrel and until I got my graduate degree and all that. And anyway.
What was the degree in?
History, European history. But I was also interested in what was going on here, but I didn't want to major in American. They didn't have any foreign languages or anything they required, and it was kind of more Mickey Mouse. So then I went to France. I had to get out of here for a while.
And what did you do in France?
Studied in France. I studied the history of Provence, the southern part of France, in Faculty of Letters, but also worked on the language and literature and stuff at another institute. So yeah, and I didn't want to go back home from there either. I wanted to stay there, but I didn't have the GI Bill in the summer, so I couldn't use it. I mean, I couldn't, so and then the parents were screaming about our little girl, so we went back. And then I left again for Africa.
And what did you do there?
I was a teacher, taught history, and I had to teach biblical studies because I was under the Presbyterian Church. And I said, well, I've never had any Bible training or anything like that. It's all been secular. And so I told the headmaster, they were all Africans except for us, one family. And I told him, well, I said, if you give me your notes, I'll do it. So he gave me his notes, and we were best friends ever since.
Wow.
He died a few years ago.
Now it says on here that you got involved in spiritual working with the church. Was that related at all to your being involved with chaplains in the war?
In a way, I mean, some of the chaplains actually committed suicide when they came back, or after a while. They all of them had a hard time because they were struggling between being a chaplain for the U.S. military and and the responsibility that, but then their spirituality, their faith traditions and everything were set against that in a way, and so they had a struggle, and and there was so much. We had so many deaths and casualties and stuff that they had a real hard time in '68. That was the bloodiest year of the war. By the way, if you want a book that tells about that, the best book you could get, and I've read all of them, I think. It's this one called After Tet, the Bloodiest Year of the War. And Ronald H. Spector, Spector, wrote the book. And I wrote him a letter about the book, just a short one to compliment him on it. But we're all in it. We're all through it, our battalion. But and the 3rd Marine Division is a lot in it too. So
Did he write you
but
back?
I wrote him a letter about, because he has a chapter on the Confederate flags. And the Confederate flags were everywhere. They were on all the vehicles. They were in front of the tents, everything. There was no American flag. I never saw an American flag in Vietnam.
Really?
And I wrote him about that. I said, so the Confederate flag displaced our flag for everything. Well, that didn't suit a lot of people well, especially the African Americans. And
now, why do you think they had so many of the Confederate flags?
Well, because we had a lot of Southerners in the Marine Corps, so they put them up. And then we had state flags that were kind of next to them, but kind of behind them. So we fought under the Confederate States of America. And, and in my family, we had a Union soldier, a private, that fought with Grant. And, he was adamantly opposed to slavery. And so, it hit me hard, because I especially when I saw a lieutenant, we were going out on a search and destroy operation, and I saw a lieutenant come up and tell this kid in front of me with his pack and his rifle, he was in the column, that he had to get in his pack and take that American flag out and give it to him. And his mother had sent it to him. And so it made me so angry to see that poor kid, because he probably got killed, and when he got home, his mother saw the American flag draped over his coffin, but she didn't know that he had it taken away from him by a Marine Corps officer. And this happened. This was a horrible thing. And I thought to myself, if this is really the deal, well, why don't we have the flag? Why do we have? So when the Vietnam Veterans of America were founded by Bobby Muller and some other guys, and Bobby was also in the Gulf Company in my battalion, and he got shot in the spine, kind of like Born on the 4th of July,
Right.
And yeah, it's the same deal. And he's in a wheelchair, but Bobby and I talked a lot, and I learned a lot from him. And he got shot early, so I never knew he was in the battalion. And but anyway, he founded the Vietnam Veterans of America and went with these other guys. And when they founded it, the flag was not the American flag in the logo. It's the yellow flag with the 3 red stripes. That's the Republic of South Vietnam. And that's the only flag I ever saw over there, besides North Vietnamese stuff. So, and then the Confederate flag, of course.
Did Spector ever write you back? Did he ever answer you?
Yeah, he did, actually. He wrote me back. I got the letter. He said, just a short, he's a really brilliant guy. He teaches at George Washington University, Elliott School of International Affairs. He teaches history. He says, thank you for your letter of, dear Reverend Stuart, thank you for your letter of 13 May 1993. It's always a pleasure to hear from people who were there and to learn that they appreciated the book. In regard to the Confederate flags, as I mentioned, this was a tempest in a teapot. However, I discussed it because, as you point out, there were so many of them, and they did come to be a symbol of super sensitive racial feelings of the time. I'm glad to hear that you were able to go back to Vietnam in 1992. Sincerely. Nice letter.
So you were a pastor at some point after your service in the war, right? How long had
Not right away, not right away. But I went to Africa, and in Africa, I kind of got evangelized in a sense by the African Christians, Presbyterian, and they had absolutely nothing, and they shared what they had, and they had faith, and they ended up dying around 40 years old at age, and I mean it was terrible. The malaria was unbelievable, and you know, I saw something in the faith that I never really saw here, even though I was, you know, involved in the church and stuff, but it was different. And so I went to seminary instead of grad school to get my PhD in history. And that wouldn't have done me any good except adjunct jobs anyway. But so I went to Union Seminary in New York for 3 years. And then I studied African history at Columbia for 2 years. And they offered me a fellowship to pay everything for, so I could write my dissertation, and I didn't do it
so
because
is,
nobody was getting jobs.
is Reverend Stuart your formal title?
Yeah, Reverend honorably retired. Don't forget that. HR. That's after my name is HR.
So when you came back, and you don't have to answer this, I'm just wondering, did you ever go into therapy? Did you ever talk to a therapist or a psychologist or anything?
No.
Never did. You found you thought your faith helped you.
Yeah, it did, but yeah, it helped me, but it didn't help me with the American church really as much as I thought it might. It you know, because I just felt alone, kind of, you know, like out there, and the few guys that I ran into were the same way, and I didn't feel like the country had changed so much in '68 and '67 and even '69 that it wasn't the same place I left. It wasn't the same country I left before, and also you know, we were very unpopular. I mean, you know, you had to conceal the fact that you were a Vietnam veteran. I mean, you know, and people knew anyway. You've been gone a while, and the people around you and stuff. But you know, it was a very unpopular war. Should have never been fought, and we were in it, and we got blamed for it. So
You said you went back to Vietnam in 92?
93.
Okay.
Yeah,
What was that
I
about?
was part of the first church delegation from the United States that went back there after the war. And we were there on a peace mission, but also to rebuild relationships with the churches. They were still there. The Tin Lawn Church was a Protestant church that was founded by the Christian Missionary Alliance. They were still there. But of course, the Catholic Church was still prominent in the South, but also had some in the North, you know, little. But I met this Reverend too, who was one of the first people I met that was well, he was with Ho Chi Minh and all that in the North in Hanoi. And he visited our first prisoners in the Hanoi Hilton and stuff. And, you know, I didn't know any of this history about what the churches did during that time. But then I became a follower of Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote books, but he also had programs and stuff. He wrote he had a press in San Francisco, Parallax Press, but he lived in France. And so he'd come over and all that, but he died. But his brother was a North Vietnamese soldier that we killed. And so he felt the same pain, you know. And but anyway, I didn't know him personally, but I sure knew him every other way. And he helped me a lot through his writings. And peace. And I went through a program that I started. I was one of the guys that started the national. What do we call it? They got another name for it now, but it was the National NCVVM. So it was National Conference of Vietnam Veteran Ministers. That's what it was. And we started in Washington, D.C. just before the outbreak of the Iraq War. George Bush, I think. But anyway, we wrote a statement that was so powerful. I might have sent it to you. I don't know if I did. But it went to all the newspapers. And anyway, it was from, and some of us were chaplains and some of us were combat, infantry and stuff like that. But started by a Catholic priest by the name of Philip Salois, Salois, who is now, he's still with the Vietnam Veterans of America, but he just does the obituaries. And he's still alive because his picture's still in there and his name. So that's how I know.
Now, when you
But, huh?
No, go ahead.
Well, we started this organization. We had all the gurus that were teaching in the campuses at Cal and, all these different places, and they helped us, and we organized, and then we were active for 3 or 4 years at least, and then we did a lot of good things, I think, but there were a lot of guys that had the PTSD and a lot of really bad problems, and I was one of them, but there were others, and they talked and they shared, and and they were ministers and stuff, and priests.
So you said you had PTSD.
I do have it. I do have it.
Yes, you still.
Oh yeah, I got a major amount, but I also have the TBI, traumatic brain injury from all the bombings and stuff, and Khe Sahn, and all the ordnance and all that, the noise, and I have what else have I got? I got all 3 of them. There's 3 categories. Oh, I've got the Agent Orange. I've got real bad diabetes, type 2, and I'm hanging on, but not by much.
Well, you certainly present well. I will say that.
Well, I used to teach, and then I preached.
Right. You're an articulate spokesman.
You are an articulate spokesman.
How would you sum up your experience in Vietnam?
Well, I'll show you one more book. It's called War Without Heroes. And if you ever get a book for your museum, it should be this one, even more than the other 2. This was by David Douglas Duncan, who was a Marine in World War II. He's a photographer. He was a photographer during the war. And this is a book of photographs. And you can see in the expressions on the faces of these Marines that, they put the press release. And he put the press release, no, let's see. This is what we wrote in the press release that we sent out before the outbreak of the Gulf War. We were members included decorated combat veterans and former chaplains. Their concern was for the veterans who might be sent to the Gulf. And this is what went to the newspapers. Out of our experiences at My Lai, the siege of Khe Sahn, the Phoenix program, the Tet Offensive, and other battles of Vietnam, caring ministries have already emerged. Yet another ministry remains for us. As our nation stands once again on the very brink of war, we must remind our fellow Americans of the great truth which we recalled in prayer before the wall. War does cruel violence to humanity. War dehumanizes both ourselves and our enemies. War thrusts upon us the low morality of mere survival. It imposes upon us silence in the face of evil and causes us to forget our quest for peace and mercy. Our religious traditions remind us that war can only be allowed as a last resort. The true weapons of peace are compassion, forgiveness, justice, and love. No decision about war can be taken without recognition of its consequences. We stand ready to go anywhere at any time to promote peace, reconciliation, and healing. That was our press release. I wrote part of that, but so did a lot of the others. But this book is called War Without Heroes, and it's three different battles by three different companies, three different units, battalions. The first one was mine. It was before I got there. It was called Operation Fortress Sentry, and it was in up in the DMZ, way up in North Vietnam, and it was a beachhead landing. And I know a lot of the people that are in the photograph. Some of them were killed later, but then the second one was Mike Company, 3-3, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and it's at Con Tien, which in Vietnamese means Hill of the Angels. It's the farthest point north before you get across into North Vietnam. And it had Leatherneck Square and all that. And the third one is Khe Sahn. And I'll tell you a little story about that one. The one at Khe Sahn, I knew about this book or this photographer when I was in Vietnam, because this buddy of mine, his name was Jim. I'm having a block, but anyway, his parents were good friends. His dad worked for Heister Company Corporation in Portland, and his parents were good friends with my ex-wife's parents, and so I knew that he was over there, and we met up, and he was with the 26th Marines. They were the ones that were Echo Company. He was a rifleman. Well, most of us were 0311s, rifleman, and he went to sniper school, so he was a real good shot, and he ended up walking point for his rifle squad. He did it the whole war, and anyway, he told me that he was going to be famous someday. And I said, "Oh yeah, how?" He said, "I'm going to be in a book," and it was this book. Wow. And his picture is in here. He's carrying a body. He's real clear, and but anyway, I don't know. I'm not going to find it right now. But anyway, so he was in the book. He is in the book, and it doesn't have his name or anything, but it has his unit and all that. And it's a battle that they fought at Khe Sahn, and one of the hills. And so we kept in touch for quite a while. He's a little slow in the school kind of stuff, but he could catch a squirrel with his hands, And I mean, he was real outdoorsman and stuff. But he ended up, I think he was a truck driver for a while. He got shot in the clavicle down at Dodge City when the 26 were moved. Finally, they were so-called liberated, and then they tried to make it go away, like Khe Sahn was done. It's over. We're gone. No, you weren't, because we were the ones that liberated those people. The 26 that got them out of there, because I was with 2-3 on Operation Hastings, and that's what we did. And we had the 1st Air Cavalry Division come in, and they were involved in that, and we got them out. But then we took over. And who was it? It was the 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines. For some reason, we were still up there in that area, and it was the 1st Marine Regiment, which is the 3 battalions. And so it was all the 4 of us were up there. we took more losses than they did during Khe Sahn siege, you know, until we closed the base in June, and I was there for that. So yeah, it was a stupid thing because General Giap, I mean, I've got a book on him that says why we lost the war. But General Giap was a Vietnamese general. He was a brilliant general, and he had over 40,000 troops, 2.5 divisions up there. We had 4 battalions, you know. So, you know, it was a mess. But they tried to cover it up as usual, you know, the government people here. And but anyway, this one, this is a good book, and you should really have it in your library. You can only get it, it's not published now, but you can get it used. And that's what you should get. So if you get 3 books, I recommend this one first, and then probably this one next after Tet, because that covers 1968, the battles and everything. And it's real done, well done by Spector. I mean, he took liberty. He took his neck out there. But, you know, he didn't, no one has said the American flag wasn't there. But I never saw one. And I saw one taken away from a kid, you know. And I never saw an American flag over there anywhere.
Well, Robert,
And then
we appreciate your sharing your story with us. And
Good.
we appreciate the recommendations on the books as well.
Yeah, well, I taught history, and you know, and I've always been a history buff, and
Me
had
too.
a lot of graduate years in history. So, you know, for what it's worth, and I've taught adjunct history for a long time. So
See if you can get the Bills to win the Super Bowl. Would you please, Robert?
I'll try my hardest. I'll try my hardest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try my hardest. You know, everybody's a diehard Bills fan out here, and you know, they love Allen and that. And the problem is he needs running backs, and they got this guy Cook is the first time they've actually got any yardage at all, but he's not very big. You know, we need a guy like they have down in Tennessee, the Titans. That great big guy.
Well, he's
We
a
need
free
a guy
agent,
like
Yeah,
so
but I
maybe
think
you can
he's
sign
lost
him.
a couple of steps. Okay, meanwhile, I think we're getting off off topic. But you were thank you very much for doing this. I think
Well,
this is
God
gonna be
bless you
very-
guys for what you're doing to remember us. And it was a hard time. And, you know, there were a lot of years there where I didn't want to be here. And so I wasn't. I traveled a lot and my work. So I was gone a lot. And up into the 1990s, I was traveling around the world and stuff. So, you know, in my work. And so, you know, it felt right, and I was healthier. And but now I guess I'm okay.
good.
We're
There's
happy
not many of
you're
us
still
at the
here.
VA. I'll tell you, you can go to the VA, any VAs, and you don't find many combat soldiers or Marines. You don't. They're just not around. They died earlier, and most of my friends are gone.
Hmm.
Maybe there's 3 left in the platoon.
We're happy that you're
Yeah.
still here, sir.
Well, I'm still here, but it's one day at a time.
You
Some
got
days
it.
are better than others.
Well, thank
Let's
you
put it
very
that way.
much. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm going back to Portland, by the way, Willamette National Cemetery, where my dad and mom are buried, and a bunch of my buddies. So I'll always be a Portlander, no matter where I live.
You got it. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
And Jim will
Take
be
care.
in touch with you to give you the link when he has it up on YouTube so that you can see it and show it to anyone who you want to see it. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, great.
You know, YouTube's a long line of, if you go into YouTube and you try to find, you know, what it is you're looking for, my God, you could be there all day.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
many.
absolutely.
Well, Jim will
Yeah.
send you the link so you can get straight to it. It'll be a lot faster that way.
You guys are great. Take
Thank you
care
so
of
much,
yourself.
sir.
Thank you.
Good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
God bless you both.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.